It's Brandon Turner. I want to tell you exactly how to build a multi-million-dollar rental property portfolio in this video. Now, do me a favor. If this is helpful for you, follow me on social media because I'm going to help you get to that $1 million net worth and more while keeping your soul intact. Now, the first thing you want to do when you're building a rental, are you taking notes? You should be. Take notes. First thing you want to do is decide what kind of real estate you actually want to get into. There's a million different niches and strategies. Like, specifically this video is about rental property investing and building passive income. But what does that even mean? Like are you buying commercial properties, like big, warehouses? Are you going to buy industrial? Are you going to buy residential houses? Are you going to buy multifamily, small multifamily, large? Don't get overwhelmed. Just know that there are a lot of avenues and some things work better in some areas, some things worse in some areas. So my advice to you is simply this. Do what fires you up. Do what fires you up and do what works in your market. Or if what fires you up isn't in your market, then maybe you have to go to a different market. That's totally fine, but it does require you to make a choice. Now, there's a great quote in the book Traction from Gino Wickman, and it says it's often more important that you decide than what you decide. So don't get caught up on what's the perfect investment. If you want to do multifamily, single family, whatever, it all works. Maybe learn a little bit about all of them and then decide from there. If you want a little bit more additional resource on learning, I wrote a book called How to Invest in Real Estate. It's a very general, top 40,000 foot view, but I kind of go through all the different options in here. Anyway, you could probably pick it up on Kindle for under $10. Steal it off the internet somewhere. But the key is just get a broad understanding, and then you want to really focus in, this is what I'm going to do. The next step is actually a little more intangible, but it's probably the most important step, is you really got to commit to it. Know that this is not going to happen overnight. It might take a decade. Even when it looks like people had overnight success, it almost never is overnight success. So what I'd recommend is just sit there and say, hey, am I willing to suffer for this for a long time? In fact, let's go even deeper on that. There is a movie, you probably heard of it, called The Passion of the Christ. Have you heard of that? Or around Easter time, they go do the Passion play. But what does that mean? The Passion of the Christ? Was Jesus passionate? Woohoo, let's go. What does the word passion mean? It actually means to suffer. So it's the suffering of the Christ, all right? We're going to go watch the suffering play. That's what passion means. So a lot of times people are like, well, I'm not really into it. I'm not really passionate about it anymore. What they really mean is they're not in love with it anymore. And that's okay. You won't always be in love with real estate or any business that you start. More importantly is that you're willing to suffer through the hard times, that you're not excited about it. You may not always feel in love, but are you willing to commit to it for the long haul? Now, there are people who have built up multi-million-dollar portfolios, millions of dollars in passive income in short times, a year, 2 year, 3 year. It's possible. It's just not plausible. It's not likely. And so just have the right intention going in, have the right expectation going in, and you're much more likely to stick through it for the long haul. All right, so we started with picking our niche. We got committed to it for the long haul. Now what I want you to think through is the financing. Now, you could put financing later in this list of how to, but I want to put it in right now. Because financing is one of those things where you don't have to have the money in order to buy real estate. I bought millions of dollars of real estate using other people's money, and I'll explain a few things in a minute how I've done that. But it does take money. And so it takes somebody's money. So knowing how you're going to finance it, even if you have only a slight idea of how you're going to finance it, would be super helpful when you're getting into real estate. So let's talk about some of the options. First of all, if you can save up 20 to 30% down, you can probably get a bank loan as long as your credit isn't terrible. That's on just a normal rental property. So let's say you're going to find a $200,000 to $1,000 duplex. And by the way, I'm going to give some numbers in today's video. I might mention a $200,000 duplex. Now, some of you are going to go, $200,000 for a duplex? That's super cheap. And some of you are going to be like, that's super expensive. And some of you are going to be like, oh, that's about what they cost. Real estate varies so much. I've lived in the lowest priced area of Washington State where you could buy a house or a duplex for $50,000. And then I've lived now in Hawaii where nothing's under $1 million. And there's everything in between that. And so just don't shut your brain off when I start using numbers. I'm just giving examples. But let's just say you found a $200,000 duplex. Well, 20% down would be about $40,000. 30% down would be about $60,000. Now, you might be thinking, well, you don't have that money. That's okay. Stick with me for a minute. But that is one option. You could say, I'm going to go get a bank loan. In that case, if you have that, I would go get pre-approved. If you plan to go the traditional route, the conventional route, then I would go get pre-approved from a local bank. Now, you could go to any of the big ones, Chase, Wells Fargo, US Bank, whatever, if you wanted to. Or you could go to what's called a mortgage broker. Those are people who maybe are brokers that deal with multiple different lenders. You can go to one of those. Or you can go to a smaller local community bank. Something like, a credit union or a bank that maybe is a regional bank or a smaller bank in your town. Now, there is no right or wrong necessarily. I tend to like the more smaller local community banks. I like having the relationship with them. And they tend to be able to do a little bit more. Gray area is the wrong word, but they can bend their own rules a little bit for you sometimes. So I like building a relationship long term. So I would recommend that, but it doesn't really matter in the beginning. Just go get pre-approved. If you get turned down, ask why you got turned down. Be like, okay, well, what do I need to do in order to get qualified for that loan? And then they're gonna be like, well, your debt's too high, your income's not enough, you haven't had your job long enough. Then get to work on fixing that stuff. But it doesn't mean while you're fixing it, you can't do anything. It means you got to find a more creative way. Now let's talk about some more of those creative ways. Now, I also wrote a book, and I'm not just trying to sell books today, I promise. I don't care if you just want to, like, all this stuff's been given away for free on YouTube videos and blog posts from me and others all over the internet. But I'm just saying, if you want to shortcut it, I did write a book called The Book on Investing in Real Estate with No and Low Money Down, which is, I don't know, it's back here somewhere. Maybe it's not. Anyway, it's called The Book on Investing in Real Estate with No and Low Money Down. The idea with that book was like there's so many strategies. It's kind of like having tools in a toolbox. If you only have a hammer in your toolbox, you can only really do a few activities. You can like pound in a nail or take out a nail. Maybe do some demo. But if you have a hammer and a screwdriver or a screw gun, now you can do more projects. And if you have a wrench and you have, the more tools you have, the more projects you can take on. The same thing is true with creative finance. The more mental tools, creative finance tools in your mental toolbox, the more projects you can take on. And so I would advise you to start learning, like read books on creative finance. Like I've written one, there's a new one that just came out from Pace Morby about creative finance. There's lots of different ways to do it, but let me give you like maybe 3 or 4 of the big ones. There's something called an FHA loan. An FHA loan is a government-sponsored loan that you can get for 3.5% down payment. Now, the downside of that one is you have to agree to live in the property for 1 year. But you don't have to refinance afterwards. You just get to keep the loan forever. But like you have to agree to live there for a short term. So how is this an investing deal? Well, if you're willing to live in like a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex for a year, you can rent the other units out. And if you buy the right type of deal, which we'll talk about in a minute, you can get that deal for only 3.5% down and maybe live for free. Like you might be able to pay all your bills off the rent from that one place. Or imagine buying a duplex and then renting the other unit out on Airbnb if that was legal in your area. Boom, payment covered. You can live for free. And don't think this is only for like crappy little duplexes in the ghetto. Like I live in Maui, Hawaii with an ocean view and a beautiful house and a pool and everything. I'm house hacking here. I got a unit in the back and I got a unit in the basement. I have 3 units here that I can rent out. I rent out one of them. The other one I keep empty for now. But if I ever had to, I could rent that out, live for free in a multi-million-dollar house in Maui. So don't think it's only for new investors buying duplex in crappy areas. All right, so that's FHA loan. Now, maybe you can't qualify for that. Doesn't mean you're out of luck. There's other options. One of the options is, one of my favorite ways to do it is through partnerships. I'm a huge fan of partnerships. A partner is somebody who has what you don't have, and when you combine together, you are stronger than each of you are separately. The easiest analogy or easiest example of that is like you find the deal, you run the deal, you manage the deal. You're just like you're the person in charge of the real estate deal, and the partner just brings the money. They bring the cash, and maybe you split it 50-50. Like, it's an easy sell to a lot of people who have money because you're like, hey, wait, you get to invest in real estate and you don't have to do any work? Like, that's a great deal for you. It's a great deal for me. It's a great deal for you. It's a great deal for everybody. Now, if you want to know how to find those people, I mean, I got a ton of videos on partnerships, and I've got books on that topic. I got a whole chapter in that book on No and Low Money Down. By the way, if you're looking for any of those books, just go to Amazon and type in Brandon Turner. You'll find it. I've sold a few million copies of books, so you'll find the books on there. All right, so the partnership thing is just magical. I mean, I still do it today. I've got almost 10,000 rental units at this point, and I did almost all of it via partnerships. I have a company, we're called Open Door Capital, odcfund.com, odcfund.com. And what we do is we actually go and find amazing deals. I have a whole team. We find deals, we vet them, we analyze them, we make offers, we do the whole thing. And then we raise capital from our limited partners. That's literally what they're called from a legal definition, limited partners. They are the money partners to us. So they fund it, we find the deal, we manage it, and then we split the profits at the end. Not quite 50-50, we give investors more than 50%. In fact, they typically get somewhere around 70% of the profits. And so maybe even more, depending on the deal. And so that's how the partnerships can work on a small level to a large level. And so I highly recommend partnerships. I think they're a great way to do it. Now, there are other ways. There's things like lease options, which is a way to do like rent to own. Like you rent somebody's rental property and then you re-rent it out to another tenant. So that's called a lease option. There's something called seller financing, which is where the owner of the property doesn't have a loan on it. They just own it free and clear, which is like millions of houses in America. And then they sell you the property, but instead of going to a bank for the loan, they issue the note. Like basically they have the mortgage. And so you pay them every month for 30 years instead. And so as long as your, income is way higher than what that payment is, you can make cash flow and you don't have to go to a bank. It's just called seller financing. One more strategy that's popular today is called subject to. I mentioned earlier my buddy Pace Morby, who has a book that just came out recently through Bigger Pockets Publishing, Wealth Without Cash. That's what it's called. That's largely about subject to, which is where you buy property that somebody has with a loan on it and you just take over their loan. Now, there are upsides and downsides of this strategy, but just know that people do it all the time and make a lot of money doing it. So those are just a few ways to get your financing nailed down. All right, so we've covered the beginning of like deciding what you're gonna get into. We've discovered the being focused on it and saying, I'm gonna stick with it for the long haul, kind of the mindset piece. And then we got the financing covered. Now let's talk about how to find those deals. Now, to find deals, I typically refer to it as the LAPS funnel, LAPS, LAPS funnel. So write that down, LAPS. That stands for leads. In other words, you got to get leads that come in, like potential properties that maybe you could buy. That's a lead. Now, there are hot leads and there are cold leads, but either way, you got to get leads coming in. Now, let's say 1,000 people call you. Now, we can talk about how to get those calls in a second, but let's just say 1,000 people call you. Out of them, we're going to go to the next part of the funnel, which is A, stands for analysis. You're going to run the numbers. You're going to analyze the deal to determine how much you can pay because, and write this down, this is super important, every property has a number that could make it a good deal. Every property. You just find that number. And then once you know that number, then you're going to make an offer, or the P in LAPS is pursue. You're going to pursue that deal. And so LAP, and then finally at the bottom, you have success. You don't always get a success, but let's just say again, you have 100 people who call you. You analyze, call it 50 of them, because maybe half of them are just tire kickers. And out of those 50, you're going to make an offer on, let's say, 10 of them. You're going to pursue 10 of them. And then out of those 10, what if only 1 out of 10 accepted your offer? That's really crappy odds. You just got a deal though. So 100 people call you and you land 1 deal. That's not an unheard of ratio. That's actually probably pretty close to what you might find. So that brings up a bigger question is then, how do you get those people calling you? Well, there's a ton of ways to get leads in the top of the funnel, a ton of ways. Direct mail marketing, where you send thousands of letters to people, a very targeted number of people, like people behind in their mortgage, or people who have owned a property for more than 10 years, are going through an eviction, like they're evicting their tenant, whatever. Get a list of people that might be leads, and then you reach out to them with a piece of mail, which would be called direct mail marketing, and some of them call you back, maybe 1, 2, 3% of them, maybe more, maybe less. Or you can call them. You can actually find their phone numbers for almost any person in America. It's called skip tracing. Write that down, skip trace, and you can find their number. There's a lot of info online for free. You can find out how to skip trace. And then you're going to find their number and call them. That's an avenue. And the key to the calling and the direct mail is really scale. How can you do it at scale? How can you get thousands? So maybe you're going to hire virtual assistants to do it, to make those phone calls. Maybe you're going to just spend all day every Saturday for the next month making phone calls, whatever. Or hire your brother-in-law to do it for full time. The key is you got to get a lot going in. You got to get a lot of volume in order for a few of them to trickle out. Another avenue, though, is called driving for dollars. It's where you get in your car and drive around neighborhoods that you would like to buy in. And what you're looking for are your targeted property types. Specifically, you're looking for distressed properties. So properties that have long grass, hasn't been mowed in a while, boarded up windows, the roof, the shingles all like curling. Just things that show you that they might be having some trouble there at that property financially. And maybe you can solve their problem. Now, I'm not saying like every property that's banged up is going to sell to you. Most of them won't. Again, volume is the key here. Let me just summarize this whole like lead part by you understanding this. It's not about doing it 1 time or 10 times or 20 times. It's about the process of continually doing those things week in and week out for months, years, decades. Like, how can you be consistent with that? Is it driving 4 hours every week and just building your list and then every month you send that person a letter and a phone call? Maybe. If you did that for a solid 2 years, would you land a deal eventually? Yes. Now, if you don't have time for that because you're too busy watching TV and Netflix, get your priorities right. If you don't have time for that because you've got a full-time job, maybe a second job and a family, maybe you need to hire someone else to do that work for you. Maybe a college kid or something like that to do that work for you. There's also things like PPC marketing, which is like ads on Facebook. When somebody's scrolling Facebook and it says, hey, whatever town you live in, let's say you live in Ohio, Cincinnati. Hey, Cincinnati homeowners, I'm looking to buy 2 houses this month. Do you want to sell your house to me? And then some people are like, I'll look into that. And they click on the ad. They go to a page that you're like, maybe there's a video of you saying this is what I do. And maybe they then reach out and sell you their house. Just an idea. There's a lot of ways to get leads, but the key is to just make it consistent. All right, so now you got leads coming in. You start to analyze those deals. We talked about that. You're running the numbers. Now, if you don't know how to run the numbers, go to YouTube and type in after this video, when you're done with this one, go look for a video called, type in Brandon Turner 4-Square Method. Like the number 4, F-O-U-R, 4-Square Method. Type that in and watch that video. It's the biggest video I ever did on YouTube. I think it's got like 2 or 3 million views at this point. And it's all about how to run the numbers on a rental property using the 4-Square Method. And I'm like in front of a whiteboard. Look for that video. I think I'm wearing a red shirt. That'll show you how to analyze a rental property. So go watch that video, learn how to analyze a rental property for real cash flow. What do you actually get? What's your actual return? Know what that number is. What are you looking for? Are you looking to break even? Hopefully not. Maybe you want a 5% or 10% return on your money. Find that number, analyze those deals, and then make your offer. Now, we talked about a lot of the off-market lead strategies, but I don't want to miss on-market. On-market is just properties being sold to a real estate agent. So imagine going to like Zillow or Realtor.com. And you go there and you can just find houses that are for sale right now. Now, the problem with the MLS, which is what it's called when they're on market being sold by an agent, the problem with the MLS is like it's super competitive, especially in the single family house space. There's a lot of emotional money in there, meaning homeowners who just want to live in a house, they don't need an investment. So they're paying way more than they probably should. Hence the reason why we like off market strategies. But you can still find deals on market, especially if you look for hidden value. What is hidden value? You're looking for properties that are maybe need some work, maybe have extra bedroom space that you could add more bedrooms to it. Maybe a property is located in a really good area that's up and coming and you could buy it in the path of progress. But actually adding bedrooms is like one of my favorite things to do. If you can find a house that's 2-bedroom, but it's like 1,500 square feet, you can turn it into a 3 or a 4-bedroom. Maybe it's got a huge living room you could carve up and make up a bedroom. That's another way to do it. Or maybe you would just find a more unique strategy. Maybe you find a house on the MLS that is in an area that is zoned okay for vacation rentals. And then you run the numbers and find out, as a vacation rental, this thing can make a lot of money. And maybe you do short-term instead of long-term rental. That's an avenue. But either way, you got to get those leads, you got to analyze them. And then if you're buying an on-market deal, meaning it's on market by a real estate agent, you're going to get your own real estate agent. Somebody preferably who understands investments and somebody who's been in the game for a long time who can help you make an offer. Now, if you're doing off-market leads and off-market deals, you're going to want to make an offer on it then yourself. You're going to want to buy like a purchase and sale agreement. You can find them online, I'm sure, for free. Or I wouldn't use a free one. I would find like a LegalZoom type of website and get yourself a purchase and sale agreement. That's what it's called. That's how you can make an offer on a property. Once you're done with that and you get the offer accepted eventually, which you eventually will, you're going to take that offer, the purchase and sale agreement, once it's signed by both parties, you're going to take it to either an attorney, which is mostly just a few Northeast states, or most of the country uses title companies. They're called title and escrow companies. You're going to use a title and escrow company. And then you're going to bring your purchase and sale agreement to them. You're going to get your financing. They're going to help you organize your financing like with the bank, and they're going to handle the whole transaction. And then you're going to buy the property. And then you're going to take over management. Once you buy the property, you got to take over management. Now, your job is not done. Just buying the property isn't nothing. You have to manage now the property. Now, if you don't want to manage it, that's fine. Hire a good property manager. They cost typically 10 to 12% of whatever the money that comes in, you're going to pay to a property manager. I think it's well worth it as long as you run the numbers with that in mind. If you want to manage yourself, just know that managing is a business. It is a job. It is not a hobby. You need to be good at it. I also wrote a book on managing. Well, my wife wrote most of it. It's called, this one right there. It's called The Book on Managing Rental Properties, also on Amazon. Just understand that you have to be good. Tenants will take advantage of you and walk all over you. All your administrative hell will just go through the roof. You'll hate being a landlord if you're not good at it. So just commit to the process, commit to being good at it, and commit to working at it for the long haul. Now, I want to have one more tip in here, and that is, along this journey, don't do it alone. How can you make this a team sport? How can you add people to your team, whether it's good real estate agents, a good lender, contractors, property managers, that's part of your team. But what if you just win it with a partner and you both split duties? How can you keep this thing more of a team sport and then scale faster that way? And how do you find those people? I highly recommend going to real estate meetups. There's real estate meetups happening all the time, all over the country, in every major city. You can find a lot of them by going to like biggerpockets.com/meet, MEET. You can go to meetup.com. You can find them there. Or maybe you're just going to organize your own. Maybe you're just going to find your own in your area, put it on meetup.com and see if you can get 10, 20 people to show up and talk real estate. Some of them might end up being lifelong partners for you. In fact, one of my current partners right now with Open Door Capital, Ryan, I met at a meetup. I think it's a great way to get started investing in real estate. Now, if you do all this right, it doesn't mean you're guaranteed to make billions of dollars and overnight. Again, it takes time. But if you stick with the process I just outlined, you will invest in real estate. You will start building cash flow over time. And then your income goes up because the rents go up over time, but your mortgage stays the same. So you get more and more cash flow every year. You also get a greater net worth every year. And then one day, just like me, I was 30 years old, sitting at a Starbucks and doing my personal financial statement. And all of a sudden I looked down and I realized I was a millionaire. I was like, here's how much I owe and here's how much all my properties are worth. And I just crossed the $1 million mark when I was 30. Now, I didn't stop. That was only when I had like 35 or 40 rental units. Today, I've got, again, closer to 10,000. So I just kept going. You don't have to. If you want to just dedicate your life to service, you want to dedicate your life to travel, whatever you want at that point, you can do. But you can't do that. You can't have that dream life you want until you nail this part first, the financial freedom. So I'm going to help you get there. Follow me, Beardy Brandon, on social media. Listen to the podcast, A Better Life with Brandon Turner, on anywhere podcasts can be found. And join the Better Life Tribe. Go to abetterlife.com. I'd love to see you there. And then go check out that video, The 4-Score Method, right now. Learn how to analyze deals. And don't forget to smash that heart button if you found this helpful. Thank you for being a part of this video and for watching it and sticking with me to the end. I hope this makes you a millionaire through real estate investing. My name is Brandon Turner, signing off.